Greetings, YouTube. Last summer, a former police officer in Arizona walked into a bar, flashed his badge to get an entry, even though he was already drunk, walked up to a woman, slid his hand under her skirt, and ran his fingers over her genitals. This was not something this woman wanted. This was unsolicited. He was found guilty of sexual assault. He could have received up to 2 years in prison. Now, guilty, okay, he was found guilty here, folks. However, one Judge Jacqueline Hatch felt that really wasn't an appropriate sentence. So she gave the man probation and 100 hours of community service, and then said that he did not have to be registered as a sex offender. Now, I may have contentious points about the sex offender registry, but this is pretty clear, and so long as the sex offender registry exists, this man should be on it. He is a convicted sex offender. Now, that in and of itself would make this story bad enough. Judge Hatch's call on this would have been seen as somewhat out of balance. But Judge Hatch went one step further, and I'm going to read you what the judge had to say. "If you wouldn't have been there that night, none of this would have happened to you." It's a correct, direct quote. "I hope you look at what you've been through and try to take something positive out of it," Hatch said to the victim in court. "You learned a lesson about friendship, and you learned a lesson about vulnerability. When you blame others, you give up your power to change." Now, when you are an innocent victim of a sexual assault, and the person that has assaulted you has been found guilty of sexual assault, it is a pretty clear-cut situation that the assaulter is to blame for what has happened to you. It doesn't get much more clear-cut than that. Now, the victim in this case has requested that the judge apologize for this, and I agree. And there's also civil penalties that can be brought against the former cop, and the possibility that the victim could sue the judge for emotional damage, and I really hope that she does. But here on YouTube, I've encountered people that downplay the concept of victim blaming. I've even had people tell me that they don't believe victim blaming happens at all. That the concept of victim blaming is some form of liberal progressive myth. Well, folks, here it is. This right here in this story is victim blaming. The victim is being told, if you had not been in that bar, bad things would not have happened to you. And of course, the inferred concept is that you brought this upon yourself by having the temerity to walk into a bar publicly and be present in one. There's a lot of assumed things going on below the surface for this judge. There are a lot of judgments, if you will, being cast at the victim instead of the convicted sex offender. I hope that this victim appeals this sentence. I hope that she says that the judge is biased or out of line or something, because this really shouldn't be left to stand as it is. And I hope that the judge is either struck down from the bench or at the very minimum is censured by the court system for this action. This is out of bounds, folks, completely and utterly. So, I ask my viewers, do you think that this judge is out of line? And do you in fact understand what victim blaming is? Do you believe it exists? And if you don't, I'd like to know why. Because I don't think I've ever encountered a more clear-cut case of victim blaming over a convicted sex offender.